Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have rain warnings across Northern Ireland and parts of Western Scotland over the next day. Then we'll have a look at the UKV, look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. It does look still likely that we're going to be seeing west to southerly winds, so very moist, warm sort of air masses and a lot of rain around with that as well, with low pressure systems pushing in. It looks likely, though, between the sort of 5 to 10 day time frame, we do veer more westerly, meaning more sort of average air masses move in and more widespread rain, with that wind going more of a west-east direction than a south-north direction, which has avoided quite a bit of the east at times. Not all the time, but at times has. We'll then have a look at the longer range, look at the GFS, GEM, ECMWF and the ensembles to see what's happening through the next few weeks into November. Now we are starting to approach the middle of November, which is the period where we could start to see colder weather. And when I mean cold weather, not just chilly mornings, but the chances of daytimes where we do get towards the mid to maybe low single digits, overnights could drop well below freezing, and we start to see the potential for snow, at least over higher ground in Scotland, maybe even to low-lying areas towards the end of November and start of December. So that is all coming up over the next few weeks, and we're keeping all our eyes peeled on what's happening on these long-range models just because of what our winter look-aheads have been showing, which is blocking through the middle to end of November, producing a colder than average period, potentially, and some cold snaps. We are today seeing some blocking on these runs. So I think that's going to produce anything majorly cold, because it is over the next couple of weeks where we haven't got real chance of seeing anything cold just because of the time of year. But blocking signal is there on some of these runs at day 10. So very interesting seeing that, and we'll go through that in detail in the second half of the video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in description. So do start on the live radar. You can see as I'm recording this around 4:30, we do have quite a few showers in the north and west at the moment, but most areas are reasonably dry. We saw some very heavy rain move through overnight, but it did clear by mid to late morning for most, and you can see it now across parts of Scandinavia up towards Denmark. But we do have more rain to the south and the west approaching off the radar, and that is going to be producing some more very heavy rain over the next 24 hours, and we're going to see repeated bouts of this over the next 5 days, as we'll see in the UKV in a minute. If you go over to the temperatures, you can see it's been a really quite warm day. Temperatures did peak at 20 degrees today, ridiculously warm for this time of year. Again, no records, as we have reached 29 degrees in October before, right at the start, but this sort of persistent high teens, even touching on the low 20s here, really is quite mild, and I don't think we'll be seeing anything like this for at least 4 or 5 months now. All the way to sort of April times the next proper chance. Of course, we have seen 20 degrees in February and March, but the real chance will be sort of April time. That's generally when we do start to break the 20-degree barrier for the first time of the year. So a good 5 months now, probably, until we do reach these temperatures again, as it does look likely over the next week those temperatures will be returning to average, perhaps even below average in the longer term, with that bit of blocking to our north. So yeah, do enjoy the next couple of days, even though there will be a lot of rain around at times. There will also be some drier times, some sunshine, which will mean those temperatures will be allowed to rise to that 20-degree range. So please do go out and enjoy it, because it is, as I said, the last warm-ish sort of weather we'll be seeing for at least 4 or 5 months. So do go over to the weather warnings. You can see we've got a yellow warning across parts of Northern Ireland, or the whole of Northern Ireland actually, and the parts of Western Scotland. Now, if we first have a look at the warning across Northern Ireland, it's from midnight tonight until 11 AM tomorrow. Heavy rain, and it's likely to cause some disruption and flooding in a few places. Again, you can see 20, 30 millimetres, perhaps 40 millimetres in a few hours. Heavy rain will be accompanied by strong winds. High likelihood low end of the impact matrix. And the big thing with this is it's because we've had so many repeated bouts of rain over the last few days and the last couple of weeks. If we hadn't seen that amount and the ground wasn't too saturated, I don't suspect there would be a yellow warning issued for this, but it's because we can see 20 to 30 millimetres, which is quite a bit of rain, but in itself it's not worthy of a weather warning really, unless it dropped in sort of half an hour to an hour within a thunderstorm. But it's because it's going on to saturated ground and could overwhelm a few areas. So that's why we've got that yellow warning, and we do have another yellow warning across Western Scotland from 5 AM until 2 PM. So basically the same issues, 20 to 30 millimetres, 40 millimetres of rain in a few hours, and some stronger winds, but it's just delayed by a few hours because it's further northwards again. Higher end of the likelihood, low end of the impact matrix. So if we go over to the UKV and see what's happening with that precipitation over the next 5 days, if we do run through, you can see that rain that spread through earlier today. And then if we do go over towards this evening, you can see that rain pushing in around 7, 8, 9 p.m. Really quite heavy there, especially for the early hours, pushing through widespread. And for rush hour tomorrow, across northern England, the Midlands, Scotland, and even lingering into parts of Northern Ireland, some very, very heavy rain. But it should slowly clear, and by lunchtime, it will only be lingering across parts of northern and eastern Scotland. Beyond that, as we head into Saturday, more heavy rain pushes up, again, mainly in the west, and again, producing a lot of precipitation in places. Again, could see weather warnings issued for that, because again, it's not a huge amount of rain in itself, but falling onto already very saturated ground could cause some issues through Saturday before it turns drier, and then for a few heavier showers potentially pushing through there into Sunday from the west, and then another big batch of rain moving through on Monday, again producing some very heavy rain at times before eventually clearing and seeing another batch move in. But you can see there for those 5 days, the positioning of that precipitation does slowly veer from heading from southwards to northwards, more from westwards to eastwards. It doesn't fully transition yet, but that is the wind direction changing. The general prevailing wind direction that we're having at the moment is changing away from the southerly we've had for the last week or so, and more towards the westerly that we would generally see this time of year. And we'll be seeing a change in air mass. You can see that early next week. For the 1st of November, look down towards freezing at 850 HPA because that wind's coming in from the west. But you look to now, wind direction coming from the south, 7, 8, 9 or 10 degrees at 850 HPA. So it's a good 10-degree temperature drop at the upper levels of the atmosphere, or at least compared to where we are. So yeah, very, very interesting seeing that, and it's only because of a very slight change in the wind direction, but it of course will be giving more rain widely, and it will be giving cooler temperatures overall as well. If you run through those 2-meter temperatures, you can see through Thursday afternoon, look at that, 18, maybe even 19 degrees in a few areas, and 20 degrees there seen in a few spots. Very warm today. And into tomorrow, likely to see similar conditions across the east, maybe 18, 19, 20 degrees, but more cloud is pushing in, and cooler air behind that weather front will mean it will slowly cool down. And as we head towards Saturday as well, you can see those temperatures once again, 20, maybe 21 on Saturday, incredibly warm to end the month. And as we head towards Sunday, again, you can see those temperatures around that 16 to 18 degree mark, very, very warm. Very, very mild, warm for this time of year. And finally, for Halloween, we're going to see those temperatures cooling down, maybe still 16 or 17, but they're going to be definitely turning much colder onto the 1st of November. So a definite sort of step change actually on the month change, because we are seeing that cooler air come in from the west. So, if we do now go over to the GFS and see what that is showing over the next couple of weeks, again, you can see the wind generally coming up from the south at the moment, remains southerly all the way through to Halloween, and then it pushes in more from the west. Cooler air mass is starting to push in, and interestingly, you see at day 10 we continue to see these westerly flows, but the one interesting sign that I've said at the start of the video, blocking is starting to appear to our north. Nothing crazy, but as we head to 384 hours, you can see a bit more amplification of the jet stream and some of this higher pressure towards Greenland and Iceland. Again, not producing anything substantial, maybe dropping that jet stream down slightly further southwards than it would want to be, but it's not producing anything too special, and generally at the end of the run we've got just a bit of amplification and nothing too crazy. But it's that signal for higher pressure to try and position itself towards Greenland and Iceland is what we need to keep an eye on. It's actually a bit more pronounced on GEM and the ECMWF, and generally when we have a look at the ensemble, which you'll be seeing that we are generally below average in the longer term towards the start of November. And you can see from having a look at the at the upper airs, you can see we are oscillating between warmer and cooler air masses. So yes, we will still see those sort of 10-degree isotherm push in for the upper airs, but it will definitely be more cooler air masses around as well. You can see that at 12th of November there, quite a cold air mass pushing through below freezing at 850 HPA. Temperatures probably down into the high single digits, if not low teens. So yeah, definitely turning more westerly, cooler in general, but nothing crazy at this stage, just signs of some blocking to our north. If you look at the GEM, see how that does compare over the next 10 days. Again, southerly wind. We can then get a westerly flow into next week, dominating. But then look at day 10. Once again, we got these lighter greens, higher pressure building up towards Iceland and Greenland. Again, not showing anything too substantial, but there is higher pressure building up towards Greenland, where you'd expect to see some purples potentially growing there if we were going to see a very, very westerly phase. And what does this mean? It means the chances of those ECMWF runs and various longer range models that we had looking in the winter look aheads, perhaps that signal that they've seen is starting to come into the mid to longer range models that we do look at daily. So very interesting seeing that today. Again, I must stress it's not producing anything cold, nothing remotely cold, perhaps shifting the jet stream a few hundred miles further southwards than it would want to be this time of year, giving you a bit more amplification, could spin up low pressure systems more, could give us slightly cooler, colder sectors, but nothing too eventful. But of course there isn't really much cold air to our north at this point to be pushing towards us. So even if it did start to put in a northerly or easterly, it probably wouldn't actually be too cold at all. But just very interesting seeing this, because give it another few weeks, and if this blocking signal did continue, then we could see the chances from cold weather. And you look at those upper air temperatures, and you can see generally the UK is still oscillating between milder and colder sectors, but perhaps more towards the colder sectors here with more higher pressure up towards Greenland. And again, you can see a pocket of very mild air there up towards Greenland. Again, that's something typically you'd see when we see this blocking, where you get warm trapped air up towards northern latitudes within the higher pressure. So we'll have to see what happens with this. Just signs at this stage, but something interesting starting to appear within the model output for middle of November. If you compare it to the ECMWF, again, a southerly flow at the moment, more westerly over the next 5 days or so, and then right towards the end of the run, look at that, we do see high pressure ridging to our north, again, different to the GEM and different to the GFS, the high pressure actually towards Scandinavia, and could try to put in an easterly flow, but again, it wouldn't be cold because the continent is still quite mild for early November, but you can see there is big purples up towards Greenland, so yes, the high pressure blocking is pushing to our north, but it's positioned slightly differently. So still up in the air, but the signal is there, and we'll have to keep an eye on it. Again, you look at the upper air temperatures, it is starting to plunge colder air into parts of Scandinavia and Eastern Europe. Nothing crazy, look at the temperature deviation, just pockets of colder air building out there, but this warm push of air out towards Svalbard within the higher pressure, that's what could start to put in an easterly flow. Again, as I said, we haven't got that much cold air to our east, so we wouldn't produce anything substantially cold at all, but it's the signal, the higher pressure signal to our north, that is the interesting thing today, and we'll have to see what happens with it. So if you finish, have a look at the ensembles. You can see very mild over the next 5 days, and pretty much as soon as we head into November, on the 1st of November, step change down towards average, if not below average conditions, quite vividly over the next few weeks. Again, it is going to it's going to have some milder sectors in there, so you see some brief bumps there, so there will be some mild weather at times, but generally it's looking very unsettled and average to below average conditions. Again, this will be because we see that little bit of high pressure to our north, shifting the jet stream further southwards, cooling us down by a degree or two, and increasing those precipitations. So nothing drastic, but interesting signs if you want any cold weather coming up over the next sort of 4 to 6 weeks. Unfortunately, the ECMWF is not really loading on West Central. We have had some issues over the last few days, so we'll hopefully bring that back to you over the next few videos. But for the time being, we'll only be able to have a look at the GFS. But you can see there is a consistent signal here. And as I said, it does look likely that 20 degrees we've seen today, and we're going to see potentially over the next few days, will be the last 20 degrees we see for some time. Even in the longer range, a few outlier ensemble members are bringing the air masses up towards 10 degrees. But because it's in 2.5 weeks, the sun is nowhere near as strong, and it will become increasingly more difficult to get temperatures above 15 degrees within a week or two. So yeah, enjoy the warm weather while we do avoid the rain the next few days, as it's looking likely to be turning quite miserable and cold in the next couple of weeks. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.